Alright everybody, so X-Men 97 is just great. In fact, it's better than great. It's incredible. This 5th episode just blew my mind. Before we get started talking about anything in regards to that episode, which I'm still just mind blown by, we're doing a giveaway at 1100 subs. It's for a copy of X-Men 200, The Trial of Magneto. This was actually shown in X-Men 97, so if you want to win this, all you have to do is like, subscribe, and at 1100, I'm giving it away. With that out of the way, please, let's just talk about this episode. I'm going to break it down as much as I can and tell you my thoughts on this going all the way through. This was an incredible episode of television. We start the episode off with a huge headline that Genosha is joining the UN. Genosha is the island or country where all of the mutants who are not in the United States reside. Them joining the UN is a huge step forward in integrating mutants and humans together in a peaceful world like Charles Xavier wanted, and of course Magneto wants to play in a big part of this as well because Charles left the X-Men to him. We travel to Genosha and we see that this place is basically a safe haven for mutants and is kind of themed like an amusement park. We see tons of different mutants from the comic books, including Nightcrawler, Emma Frost, Madeline Pryor from the previous episodes, and many more. And through the first quarter of this episode, I was like, okay, is this going to be maybe like a side mission-esque episode, or is this going to be super lighthearted? No. We transition back over to Xavier's school where Scott Summers is giving an interview with a reporter. Scott is really fed up with humans at this point. The mutants are constantly getting blamed for the actions of humans, and when the mutants come to rescue them and save the day, they also get punished again, and Scott lashes out on this reporter completely. Obviously, because of everything else going on in his personal life, including Madeline Pryor, the clone of Jean Grey, having their child Nathan Summers. That being said, this drives a huge stake between the real Jean Grey and Scott Summers, who were together beforehand. Now, I don't know if anyone's really at fault here because, well, they were both swindled by Mr. Sinister and there's nothing they could have really done about it. We see this amplified by a meeting between Jean Grey and Logan where Jean Grey actually kisses Logan. I love the back and forth where we get Jean talking to Wolverine as well as Scott talking to the reporter, feeling out how they both really feel about the situation and they just can't communicate it to themselves. So going back to what I said, in a moment of weakness, Jean kisses Logan and Logan says that the story goes that it's supposed to be Jean Grey and Scott Summers. He's not supposed to be involved. Logan is a drifter and Logan does love Jean, but you know, it's not meant to be. The other love triangle happening in this episode and the previous episodes is the relationship between Magneto and Rogue and Gambit. Magneto proposes that Rogue marries him in order to be queen of Genosha and rule this land. And Rogue, being someone who wants to do better for mutants and humankind, thinks that this is a good idea, but she has to talk to Gambit first. Obviously, Gambit is in love with Rogue, but Rogue doesn't know how to feel because she also has this history with Magneto. We flip back and forth between Rogue, Magneto, and Gambit, as well as Madeline Pryor, Jean Grey, and Scott Summers. Heavy emotions going on here. Everyone's kind of fighting with each other even though they all love each other. It's very powerful stuff, and I think it's executed perfectly. Rogue goes to Gambit to tell him that she is going to lead with Magneto, and obviously he's heartbroken. Rogue tells Gambit that her heart may beat for him, but she can't feel it. A very key line that leads into what happens near the end of this episode. Therefore, she goes off with Magneto. Now, at this giant party on Genosha, we see Magneto dancing with Rogue while Jean Grey's clone Madeline Pryor steps out onto the balcony after her nose starts bleeding. Her and the normal Jean Grey have been having these weird visions, and after this one, something very strange happens. We see Cable arrive on the scene, going up to Madeline Pryor, telling her to leave the area. Now here we notice that Madeline Pryor does know who Cable is, but it's at this moment she realizes that Cable, due to his eyes, is the son of her and Scott Summers, Nathan Summers. Cable says that he's too late and that he's sorry, Mom. He disappears and a giant green blast explodes the building. From this point on, it's just confusion, chaos, and complete madness. We see Rogue wake up from underneath all of the rubble and we see this giant sentinel being spitting out sentinels and attacking all of the mutants on Genosha. We see Nightcrawler almost dead. We see Emma Frost and a bunch of other mutants completely hurt. We see that Callisto, the leader of the Morlocks, has died, but all of the other Morlocks are still trapped. Magneto, wanting to be better, goes out and searches for the Morlocks to rescue them. Tagging along with him is Gambit and Rogue. They find the Morlocks and Magneto saves them by blocking a green blast from this giant sentinel creature, and it's at this point the episode takes an insane turn. As Magneto tries to hold the blast back over and over again, we get glimpses of his eyes and Rogue's eyes going back and forth, completely silent, only hearing the massive power of this giant machine. And Magneto tells the Morlocks, do not be afraid. Right then, the blast is too much for Magneto to handle and all of them die. I was completely shocked by this. I had no idea that they were going to kill off Magneto, of all people, already. Obviously, there's going to be some sort of time travel element with the implications of Nathan Summers' Cable, but this this was just wild because it doesn't even end here. Rogue and Gambit go after this giant Sentinel, and Rogue is visibly destroyed after the death of Magneto. They get extremely close to destroying the machine, but Gambit actually gets stabbed from the side, and it allows him to destroy the machine, but at the cost of his life. He then says, "The name's Gambit, remember it." He destroys the Sentinel machine, but Gambit is also killed in the process. Back at home, we see all of the X-Men mourning the loss of all of the mutants on Genosha, and we transition back to Genosha, where Rogue is holding the lifeless body of Gambit, saying, "I can't feel you." And the way this episode just transitions to a black screen while we still hear Rogue crying and mourning over his loss is just sending shivers down my spine. I'm not even being dramatic. I mean, it was done so well. This show is blowing me away every single week. Even last week's episode was so unique and so enticing to watch and so entertaining. This one just did a complete flip, was exciting, but in the emotional just sort of destruction and heartbreak that goes on was overwhelming. I think this episode really cements this show as one of the best, if not the best, Marvel animated show. I'm being completely serious. I mean, the first 4 episodes were great, and I knew it had potential to be one of the greats, but this episode did it for me. I'm really invested into the story now, and especially the characters and what these characters are going to do to either get these people back or how they're going to deal with these losses. I'm completely on board. If you guys feel the same way, let me know down in the comments. I read every single one. I most likely will respond, and give me your thoughts just on this show in general, especially this episode. If I missed anything, please let me know. But yeah, overall, I'm just so happy that we have this show, and again, makes me so freaking excited to see what they do with the live action X-Men, because I'm still new to these stories. I have no idea what's going to happen next. People who read the comics may know, but I don't, and this is so exciting and so intriguing. I love this show so far. I will see you all very, very soon.